Hey, what is going on YouTube? Today's video is going to cover a process that I had recently implemented a few months back. What it does is that we are going to automate the process of setting up a new machine with our aliases file. So on each machine that I have, whether that be physical or a virtual machine, I like to have that same alias file on each of those, so this way I could get to certain directories or certain shortcuts that I'm used to on every machine. And with that, we're able to automate that process with Ansible. We're going to save it in our GitHub, which I'm not going to cover today, but we will save it in our GitHub. We'll download it from our GitHub, put it in our Ansible directory, and then we'll go ahead and automate that process by uploading that file to our new machine. With that being said, if you do enjoy this video, don't forget to drop a like, subscribe, drop a comment below. That would really be appreciated. But with that being said, let's get started. Alright, so the first thing that we need to make sure that we have enabled is going to be SSH. This virtual machine already has SSH installed, so I will show you the configuration file now. With that being said, you do have to pay attention and to ensure that password authentication is currently enabled. So we will head over there now, which is in etc ssh sshd config. As you can see here, we have password authentication set to yes, allowing us from the Ansible server to pretty much use a clear text password in order to authenticate with this server, so allowing us to pass the SSH key using their command, which I will cover in a second. And we will back out of here. As you can see, also I want to highlight that we have no authorized keys file. So what I'm just going to do real quick is I'm going to create a key pair on our Ansible server. I'm going to cover that process real quick because that is the best way to go about this. So we'll go ahead and clear this screen, go to our Ansible server, and the first thing that we want to do is go ahead and generate a key pair. So what we'll do is SSH keygen, specify with the kind that we want, the key pair that we want, RSA. It's going to ask us for a file path, so we're going to go ahead and do we'll just say lab. I'm not going to do a passphrase, it is a lab environment, but I do suggest you doing that. So now if we go ahead and read out YouTube, we should have a public and a private key pair. So now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and copy that public key to our virtual machine, allowing us to authenticate to this SSH server with a key. But before we do that, I would want to show that we can authenticate obviously using clear text password, as we just had clarified in the configuration file. So go ahead, SSH the username at the IP address, and it's going to say to enter the password for CyberMe, and there we go. But if we did turn off that in the configuration file without a key pair, we will not be able to authenticate, and therefore Ansible cannot authenticate with this server either. Now that we know we could use password authentication, we are going to pass the public key pair from our Ansible server to our new virtual machine. And to do that, we are going to use the commands SSH copy ID. And then we're going to specify the key that we want to pass. Sorry. No, it's going to be YouTube. .pub. And then we want to specify the server that we're going to, so CyberMe at 192. And it's going to ask us for the password again. For the password authentication, we're going to pass that through. And now you can see number of keys added. SSH CyberMe at 192.168.1.18, which is the IP address of this machine here. So if we go back to here, list out the contents of this directory, we can see we now have the authorized key directory or file. So if we go ahead and cat that, we will see the new key gen, or the new key pair that we had just created. This is the public key. Alright, so now let's go back into our configuration file on this new machine. Go ahead and change that out. I have to use sudo, so I gotta do that again. Make sure you use sudo, otherwise you will be changing a read-only copy and you will get that error at the bottom. Go ahead, right quit, save that file. Every time you make a change to the configuration file, you want to go ahead and run sudo system control restart sshd. This will allow that change to take place. So if we were to authenticate now with this new key pair, we will get an error. So I will highlight that real quick. So ssh it's going to say sorry, I had to revert back, not realizing I already had the file that I was going to discuss right now. So the error did not present itself, but I had deleted it so I could show you now. So if we go ahead and try to SSH back into that server, so CyberMe, we're going to get a permission denied public key. Although we do have the key, obviously, the private key on this server and the public key, it is still saying that the permission is denied unless we use the -I option specifying the private key pair. Sorry. And this will allow us to authenticate. But let's say we don't want to do that every time. We are going to create a configuration file inside of the SSH directory. So the first thing that we will do is we will just use vim. We'll do sudo vim and then we are going to specify identity file, and then we want to specify the private key. This way it will add, instead of using SSH add every time, which is also another way to add the identity file, but every time you restart the machine or the terminal, you will run into that error. So now that we have that in there, we can just go ahead and SSH into that server. There we go. Alright, so now that we could authenticate into the new virtual machine using key authentication, let's go ahead and set up our Ansible playbook and allowing us to push these aliases to the new machine. Let's go ahead and back out of this SSH session. So as you can see here, we have 3 files, or 2 directories in one file. So we have files, hosts, and playbooks. The first one that we're going to take a look at is going to be the hosts. So if we go into vim host, and then you could see here I already had specified or copied it over from a previous lab. So the one along the top is the one that's going to matter most. So new machines, you could ignore the home lab one. In fact, I could just go ahead and delete this. This is old. Alright, so new machines across the top. You got 192.168.1.18, and then we want to specify the username because it is not KAJ. Instead, it is CyberMe. So we want to specify that here, and that is going to be in the host file. The next file that we want to do is we want to go into our files and create a new alias file. So we'll go ahead and call it this. And then in here, we want to specify what hosts that we want this to. Sorry, I'm in the wrong spot right now. So in here, we're just going to make a quick alias. So we'll just do something like, we'll say RT, maybe root. Like if we want to get to root really quick, go ahead and create a quick command for that. So this way, every time we want RT, it'll put us in the root directory. We'll go ahead and save this out. But this is the file that we want to push to our new machine. Back out of that, go into playbooks, or sorry, CD playbooks. And then we want to create a new playbook here. We will name this new VM.yml YAML file, First line that we want to specify is going to be the host that we want this playbook to be used on, and we're going to say new machines, and then we're just going to specify tasks, and then down here is where we are going to write our playbook. Alright, so the first thing is we are going to name it. So this way when we are running our playbook we could see exactly what step it is doing. So we are going to say copy our alias file to home directory of new machine. Then we're going to use the copy, and then the source is obviously going to be the alias file that we had just created. But before we do that, actually let me go ahead and go back. Let's make that a so those are from the previous labs. We're just going to use that first one, obviously, the lab alias, and we wanted to make that a hidden file. So alright, so let's go back into our playbooks. Alright, and then we want to specify the source, so that is going to be exactly where we just were. So we're going to say home, Ansible, home, no, it's not going to be home, this one was YouTube, and then files, lab alias. I might have messed that up, but I will double check in a minute if it does mess up. And then the destination is going to be where we want this file to be on this machine that we are going to be running it against. We'll say destination equals home CyberMe, because we know that is the username of this machine. And then again we're going to say lab alias, and then we want to specify the owner, say CyberMe, and then we'll specify the mode. Okay, and then the next thing that we want to do is we want to source this file, so every time once this runs, this alias could be used in the new terminal that we open up. So we'll just say source alias file, and we'll say line in file, and then again we want to specify the destination. This is going to be the bashrc file, so we're going to say home CyberMe, and then we want to specify the line, and we want to say source because that is the command that we are going to run, CyberMe, and that should be it. Yeah, that should be it. So let's go ahead and save that out, right quit, and then we will run this playbook. Alright, so in order to run this playbook, we are going to use Ansible playbook. We are going to specify the inventory file with the -i option, which is going to be the host file. So Ansible, was it YouTube hosts, and then we want to specify the YAML file. So that's going to be same path, the new vm.yaml, and that should be it. Shouldn't take too long. We might run into an error, so we'll have to see what happens. So far so good, looks like it changed. Alright, we got 3 okay. So if we go ahead and head in here real quick, we might have to open up a new terminal to show that this file was indeed here. But it might already copied it. Yes, it did. So as you can see here in the home directory of CyberMe, we have lab alias. Now, what I know won't work is if we run RT, it will do nothing at this time. We do have to close out of this session or refresh it. And now every time we run a new terminal, we could use our new alias, and which brings us to root. Alright guys, a nice quick and easy video. Hopefully you guys were able to take something away. Again, obviously this isn't the alias file that I have been using for my own lab environment, but this is an example as to what you could do. I like to have, again, my commands on every machine that I have, because there are certain things that I like to do, and it is just easy to have those commands on every machine. So you can do whatever you want with yours. I do suggest you doing something similar to that, maybe uploading it to GitHub so you could have a change configuration, so you could save it over time and then push them to all your machines. That is going to close out today's video. I hope you were able to take something away. As always, never stop learning.